million or 2 million miles an hour, something like that. I forget what the exact figure is, but it's huge. And that hits us all the time, sprayed off from the sun. We get hit all the time from particles that are called baryons and leptons, high-speed cosmic energy from other galaxies and other star systems, all the time hitting us. They're hitting everything, but we're getting our fair share of it because we're in the neighborhood. All these things strike a magnetic bubble around the Earth. As I said, every planet and some of the moons of Jupiter has a bubble like this, except for Venus, and it might have one once it settles down and spins the right direction. This guy here, Moray, tapped into a way to sit on the ground here with some insulated wires and reach out electronically, if you wish, and feel the pressure of that solar wind as it vibrated at sometimes 30 million times a second. When a particle hit, it have an impulse of a 30 millionth of a second, bang, like that. So much energy in it that some of those particles go straight on through the Earth. They're huge. And he said, you know, I noticed that my energy drops off from this coil about 20% at nighttime, but it still runs at night with no direct sunlight. It's because of this magnetopause that we will look at here. This, the little brown thing in the middle there next to those dark blue circles, right here, that's Earth. And this is the field, the magnetic field of the Earth. As it moves through that solar wind, it gets bent around like a coma around a comet. And if you can imagine this being like a charged balloon full of charged air, and there's things beating on it like that all the time. At any one point in time, say in a 30 millionth of a second, roughly speaking, there's going to be a number of particles that are hitting, and there's going to be a number of rebounds from just being hit. And the net of those two is some energy for you. So if you can rake off that energy for that fraction of a second, then you've got that energy trapped down in your little device, and the system doesn't know anything about it. It fills the hole with some more energy from more particles from the sun. Now, where we went a while ago is where we belong now. This is the Van Allen belts, the radiation belts around the Earth, the outer one and the inner one. As particles hit it, as particles hit it, it rebounds like this. And it presses on the red one down there, which then presses on the surface of the Earth. What we do is build a charged pocket of air on the surface of the Earth with these wires. And when they get pushed on, they're going to make voltage. And how do we know this? Professor John Trump at MIT, he's now deceased as well, I wrote about him in my book, made a most remarkable discovery in the 50s again with high voltage. Two plates there. Those two plates represent 10 inches by 10 inches, metal plates. They're in a very high vacuum. And he has the ability to measure the attractive force between these plates when he puts a charge on it. So he said to me, and I went to see John before he died, he said, I put 300 volts per centimeter, that's a term for the field intensity. I put 300 volts per centimeter between his plates, and I measured the force at 5/10,000ths of a pound. Bugger all, not much it anyway. So then he says, I raised it to 30,000 volts per centimeter, only raised it 100 times, but yet the force is now up to half a pound, 1,000 times more. So he said, well, I wonder what would happen if we could go to the limit of our equipment to 3 million volts per centimeter. Watch this. 5.7 thousand pounds of force between two plates, 100 square inches each. Now, the outer atmosphere, that green envelope you just saw, and the red one, those are our plates. And we've got, the Earth is part of it, the whole system. There's 3 plates involved. When you move these plates, he found, back and forth mechanically, the voltage started to change. Just moving the plates closer or further apart. That top figure up there started to vary. If you got varying voltage, you've got energy. And this was what he was tapping. Now that is one source. The other source is what's called thermionic. It takes heat from your body, heat from the air. That is then processed through what is called a triboluminescent substance. And it simply means it's like the phosphor on your TV. The phosphor gets hit with an electron gun, and it emits light of a certain frequency. But if you hit that phosphor with that same frequency of light going the other way, it makes electricity come out the other side. Photoelectric effect. All atoms in our part of the universe share energy between each other in what's called the infrared spectrum, the heat spectrum. So if you get a material that is responsive instead of to visible light, but to the invisible infrared radiation, then that will convert to electrons on one side of this material, and we put what's called a tuned circuit in a cavity, just like Moray did, and it will strip mine those extra energetic electrons off and into a little spark gap and down to recharge your battery. So those two types are free energy, and there are people working on it in a network that I'm a member of in France and here in Mexico, and Australia, and elsewhere probably, but the main part of our membership is in those countries. We are able to succeed with what we've got to varying degrees, but basically if you use the atmospheric one I told you about, this one here, you'll be able to trap mechanical pressures on the outer Van Allen belt and turn them into electricity and charge batteries, which you then run inverters from, and you've got power to run your home without the power company. Obviously, one of the reasons that it's not been widely distributed. By the way, the thermionic device, if you take a nuclear, there are certain types of nuclear reactions you can make to produce a lot of infrared or heat energy. And if you do that inside of a material, of a valve that's lined with that triboluminescent material, you can convert that heat from that nuclear reaction straight into electricity, which may or may not be what Bob Lazar was talking about when he talked about his alien sport craft he saw with the 3 gravity wave focus machines out at Area 51. He did describe something which I believe to be what we use ourselves. So whether they use an element 115 and bombard it with neutrinos and get heat out of it or whatever, they're actually taking heat, like I'm telling you, and converting it straight into electricity. To a certain degree, solar silicon cells do the same thing for us in solar collectors. Oh, come on. This is the backyard. I've got 2 more holes to fill and put the poles up, and we'll be testing this out in our backyard. That's the charged antenna. You put an insulated wire, insulate it to 30 to 40,000 volts so it won't leak into the atmosphere, and you charge it up and it becomes your balloon to be compressed by the impact on our outer ionosphere and Van Allen belt. Yeah. All right. All right, look, I'm not going to explain this. I'm just going to show you some of the water and aircraft that I have made and tested here since that time, and some I'm working on now. They cycle about every 5 seconds. This one was something that I made for a DARPA proposal for a micro aerial vehicle for surveillance. This was along the same lines. They weren't accepted, by the way, so there's nothing secret here. These all employ the principles of vortex spins in air or charged air. This is another one we built in Australia, stateside. By the way, the real things weren't quite as pretty all the time. They had scuff marks and things on them, but anyway, this gives you the idea. Some of them were made out of different materials, fibers, composite, and things like that. All of these have definite reasons for their design. And that's a plasma craft with the ion peaks on the center vortex, as I've discussed with you before. Okay, that's probably enough for today. Let's see, have we forgotten anything? Smoke rings, that. Okay, that's it, folks.